Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Well-Rounded Wealth Podcast. Jack and I are on episode number 30. This is
Woohoo!
a long time. It's been almost,
I,
a year and a half now? Or something like
yeah,
that?
the first time we recorded was in February. We dropped the first episode in March, technically, and then we did a hard social media release in April, and that's when people actually knew this thing existed. So
Yeah.
it's been
It's been like a
it's
year,
been
a few
over a year
months.
now.
It's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
It's just us talking.
I know. That's what it is. But yeah, 30 episodes is pretty nuts. Like when we first started, I remember thinking how crazy it would be when we hit like 10.
Yeah.
And now we're at
Yeah.
30. That's pretty crazy to me. Like, good for us. I was telling my roommate, our friend Cole, like we were recording the 30th, and he was like, "Holy crap, you're at 30 episodes now?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess we are."
Yeah. It's crazy to think that like most people who start podcasts don't even get past like 3, and then most people once they get to 10 they drop off, and then
Yeah.
20 it's even more significant.
I remember
like,
20 was the big number you and I would talk about. Like we were pretty
Yeah.
excited when we hit the 20. And then also 21, because we're like, all right, 20 is the number most people never get to. And now we're past that. So yeah, that was always a big benchmark that I think we were excited to hit.
I know for us too, it was like we were debating about moving to weekly, and like we were always talking about that. But it's been nice because like we get to catch up to this. You guys get to hear like what we're talking about, like what's changed.
And we're busy. We're busy as hell.
Yes, this is not our full-time job. We're not full-time podcasters.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about going weekly, especially because those conversations were going on when I first moved down here and didn't fully. I was trying to figure shit out, but in all my spare time when I wasn't doing job application stuff, it was the podcast. So I had a lot of focus and attention on it, and I felt like we were ready to go weekly. No, we couldn't do it. The bi-weekly schedule is, I think, really good and really healthy.
Yeah, I agree. So what have you been up to, man? We're doing a little more conversational intro this week before we jump into our topic. But
yeah. So the set that I've been an extra on for the past few weeks, my last day's tomorrow. We have the weekend off. It was supposed to end Friday. There were like a lot of rainy days because it was outdoors, so rain actually. We couldn't shoot. So a few days were canceled, so they're adding some extra days. And I'm honestly kind of bummed it's ending. Like I was like, oh crap, I'm not gonna see a lot of these people anymore. So it's been really cool. I'm excited when I can eventually talk more about what it is and what I've been able to see and do, because I did sign this thing called a non-disclosure. Someone breached that non-disclosure. I don't know who did it, but it was like a social media post, which is the big no-no. And dude, I was like, you're insane. Why would you do that? They're screwed. I mean, we signed a thing that basically said, like, if we did something like that, they own our butts and they can take everything from you. So it's a little concerning. I can't believe someone did that. But yeah, they I think because of that, my most recent day on set, they actually took all the background. This was like the most there ever was, because there's been more or less, depending on the days. There are probably like over 200 of us, and they took us all off the set for a scene that they were doing, because I have no idea what the scene was because they took us off the set. But I guess it was like a spoiler-y scene for what was going, like story-wise and stuff, that they really didn't want to get leaked. So they were like, yeah, get them the hell out of here.
So how often does stuff like that, like leaks or breaches of NDAs happen, I guess? How frequent is that?
You know, honestly, I'm not sure, because usually most of the time those things do happen. They're shut down pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't know, but I know that a lot of things, especially projects that have a lot of attention, like any big major movies, any big TV shows. I'll use Game of Thrones as an example because that show's over. Like I know those sets were on serious lockdown, but they also of course, everyone on the set has to sign their NDAs, but they have a lot of people like going in with their camera drones and trying to hover over the set and get pictures. So they have to take precautions onto that too, and shut that down. Since they didn't sign NDAs, I don't know how much trouble they could get in. My guess is that if anything is leaked out, I bet they've just reached out and been like, delete it now or else, and then maybe that's it. That would be my guess of what happens when there is an NDA situation.
Yeah, that's gonna be wild. That'd be fun to be like a movie spoiler spy where you're just like flying drones around, like trying to.
There are people that dedicate, like that's what they do.
It's kind of awesome,
and they obviously profit from it, or else they wouldn't do it. But their whole business model is finding out spoilers for things that for like big movies and TV shows that people care about. There's like a reality show guy who's like, his thing is like the Bachelor series, the reality show.
Yeah.
I think his name's Reality Steve. He like, if you like ever want to know like who's going to win that show or anything big that goes down, he knows because he just has beforehand. A lot of beforehand. Yeah. Like he always knows like who wins, who the final two are, if something crazy goes down. So yeah, there are people that literally dedicate their lives to that stuff, which I think is kind of lame. Time here's an example of like, sorry, I just think that's lame as hell. Also, I don't like spoilers anymore. When I was younger, of course, I was always like wanting to know what happens. But the set that I was on, there were opportunities where I could have gotten some spoilers given to me, but I didn't want to know. I was like, even though I'm involved in this project, I do want to see this project with as fresh eyes as possible and be surprised where I can. Because that's just, I've learned that that's really the fun of being a viewer. But like art. Also, sometimes leaks can actually like, because it's like, yeah, spoilers are spoilers. Here's an example of, so someone leaked a script for a live action show of the Powder Puff Girls. If you heard of that cartoon.
Yeah.
They were going to do a live action show. And I think they shot the pilot. And that was it. The pilot script gets leaked to the internet and for everyone to see. And everyone reads the script and everyone decided that this script is atrocious and terrible. So the CW pulls the plug on the show.
Yeah, it can. I mean, even if it is really good, like I'm sure it's going to deter a few people too, because it's like I just don't need to see it now that I know the end of the story. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So they pulled the plug on that entire show. That's like hundreds of jobs that leak just lost people.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the production's canceled. So everyone that was working crew, they thought I believe it was getting picked up. I don't know if it officially got picked up, but they were like, great, I have some job security. I'm doing, it'll be at least like probably like 10-ish weeks or maybe even like 20, depending on how long the season was, where I will have a job. The showrunners and the writers, the actors got cast in their big pilot show. They're leading, they're excited. And then this leak happens and then the entire project gets completely canceled and everyone gets screwed that was involved in that project.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a time when that was kind of an insight to me of, okay, this is why leaks should not happen, because that just screwed over so many people. And they didn't even get a chance. Because, like, look, it was a show on the CW. Read any pilot script for the CW show, you won't be blown away. You just won't. But it's different when you actually film it and edit it together and actually see charismatic characters, and then it gets a shot to build more and develop an interesting story. So that's just kind of something I noticed, and it's something I want to take seriously, even regardless of signing an NDA. That last thing I want to do is screw anybody over and have it affect them, especially from a career standpoint.
You're a good guy.
Thank you.
That's a good thing to do. not screw people over.
Yeah.
Always.
So what's up with your gray hair? I know what's up with your gray hair. I'm teeing you up.
Hair and
you got some gray in your beard.
I know. I was and my voice is gone. That's why I'm. If it sounds like I'm going through puberty right now, that's why.
Dude, it kind of does.
My
That's really
voice is
funny.
low, and then I get a voice crack, and I'm like, "Hello." um, Dressed up as old people for one of my friend's birthdays yesterday.
That's awesome.
And did a like bar crawl. I haven't drank in like 2.5, 3 months, and I honestly wasn't planning on doing it. But then everyone was having such a fun time and dancing. I was like, "Oh fuck, I'll do a drink."
Wow,
One drink
succumb to
turned,
peer
like,
pressure.
3 to 5 drinks and a long night. I mean, we were out from like 1 to 1, which I was also
Ooh.
not expecting. So,
Damn,
yeah,
that's a long ass
I'm-
day. I assumed you left at
dude,
like
it was
6 or 7
long.
p.m.
I should have, but I didn't. Then my car
Oh,
got
that's
towed.
wild, man. So, okay. So it's your first time drinking in a few months, and you had like
Mhm.
you said 3 to 5-ish drinks.
Yeah.
How are you feeling when you were feeling? Because you told me you were feeling it. So like, how did you
Oh.
feel?
That first one hit real fast. I was like, wow. I feel warm.
Do you remember everything still?
Yeah.
So it wasn't
No,
that bad.
I didn't black out. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I can get pretty buzzed pretty quickly because my tolerance is just so low, but I'm also a big guy. So like, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
Like, I also know my limits. So like, I never got to the point where I'm like drinking too much. Like I like having conversations with people. So I don't want to get to the point where I don't remember anything.
I'm the exact same way.
Foregone days.
I hit
but-
that sweet spot yesterday as well. That was exactly where I was.
Just maintain.
And yeah.
Although I had to pace myself. That's for sure.
Dude, the biggest lie that we were ever told growing up, like with DARE and, the police officers coming in to talk to us about the dangers of alcohol, is that you can't build a tolerance.
Oh, yeah.
They always told us that. They're like, you can't build a tolerance. Like 3 drinks is 3 drinks. That is so false.
Yeah, you can build a tolerance for anything.
Yeah. You can absolutely build a tolerance. No, I get they're basically saying like you shouldn't seek out to build a tolerance. Well, I think that's what they're trying to get at. But I mean, that's just so not true. One, yeah, because I'm not in college anymore and I'm not drinking as frequently as I used to. I get more drunk quicker for sure, and my hangovers are way worse for sure.
Dude, I don't really have a hangover. I'm just like, when your body is just like, ugh. Like, that's how I felt this morning, dude. I was like,
so you have a hangover.
What happened?
Maybe you don't have a headache, but
yeah, my head doesn't hurt, but my body just feels slow.
Yeah,
it's not. I guess if that's a hangover, I don't actually know what the exact term of a hangover means, but if it's being impacted by alcohol the next morning, then yeah, I have been impacted by alcohol the next morning. But
yeah. I get what you're
though.
saying. Because for me, the worst part of a hangover is always the head. Like having a headache. That's when you're like, oh my God, this sucks.
I didn't.
But I feel like even if you don't have the headache, but your body, you're just kind of achy and your body feels kind of weak, I think you're still hungover.
Yeah.
It's just not bad.
Dude, one thing I saw, I actually brought like one of my Liquid IV like electrolyte thingies.
Oh, I took one of those this morning.
Yeah. I brought it out to the bar because I was just going to drink that instead. And I put it in one of my drinks. I've actually seen people start putting those in their drinks.
Really?
I mean, it's like especially like, tequila water or like vodka waters are super popular nowadays.
Uh-huh.
And it's like you mix that stuff in and it like hydrates you and it like you
intoxicates you.
Yeah. Buzz kind of thing going. So I would love to make something that's like a more social like presence of a kind of drip infusion of like a liquid IV hydration thing for alcohol. I think that'd be a cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's good in theory. That almost does concern me a little bit because I think if I was doing that, that means like you're both getting drunk but also still feeling good and hydrated. So I feel like that could make you feel like you can handle more than you can. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think it'd still make a lot of money.
That you're probably true about. Dude, have you heard about these actual IVs. Oh yeah, for anyone that doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, liquid IVs, it's like a powder thing that you like pour into your water with electrolytes and it hydrates you. But they have actual IVs. There's like clinics or like quote
Yeah.
unquote clinics that you can go to when you're hungover and you can go and like get an IV. That's the
You don't.
craziest shit I've ever heard of.
That's where it started. Like
What do you mean?
IVs came before liquid IVs.
Well, yes, I know IVs in
Oh,
general,
okay.
but there's like it's like not even like going to the hospital or anything. There's like places their business
Yeah.
model is got a hangover, come here for an IV.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, like, there's a spot in Charlotte called Invigory, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that they do. And it's just like there's. I mean, you can get, you know, like your BCAAs or B plus vitamins, or but those bags are so cheap for those businesses to administer, and they charge
Uh-huh.
you like $95 to $200 to get an IV.
Yeah, it's expensive as hell.
Although
That's crazy to me.
they feel really good though.
I think if you're at the point where you're feeling the need to do that, especially on a consistent basis, that's a
Well,
little concerning
well, it's not just yeah. If that's your like rebound from
because you're always
drinking,
getting hammered,
yeah,
and then you're
yeah,
like wake up next morning, you're like, all right, gotta get the bag.
yeah.
I need an IV.
Need a little
Time for
drip.
my IV.
Um,
That's nuts, in my opinion. But yeah, if you
yeah.
actually need an IV, then of course.
I mean, you can park yourself downtown Nashville and just, hey there, right in the bottom of a lobby of a hotel. That'd be a
They
genius.
have them.
Oh, I'm saying that'd be a genius thing to do.
I
You
heard
just like,
apartment complexes we're gonna start like offering them.
that's interesting for our society.
Yeah. Granted, this news article came from Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, but they mentioned that might be happening. They made
Yeah,
like a joke about it, but they said that like that was like something that might be happening. I'll have to do more real research into that instead of a headline from a parody show.
yeah. There are like there's different types of IVs you can get that
Hmm.
are just good for maintaining certain levels of like health, and like I've done a few of them, and they make you feel great. It's basically like getting like an electrolyte just shot straight into your veins, and so
Yeah, I'm sure that feels great. Yeah.
you feel cold a little bit like when you first get it because it's just like all these nutrients rushing straight into your bloodstream, and it's like whew, that wakes you up. So it is fun
That's
to
cool. I would be down to try that sometime, especially if I need it. If I like
do.
severely need it. But
You know
that's
what
also
reminds me?
for the hangover thing. It's a lot of money to spend.
You know the Borgs, like where people did like the Mio
Yeah,
in
I've
the
done that
water.
before. I
Yeah,
did that back in college.
that it's like, what if we made a more mature and marketable version of that?
So I see.
Good idea.
Almost like instead of going and buying the stuff to create your own at-home Borg, you're almost
It's like a
selling
nice
all the
cocktail.
parts as one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's almost like a
it's a
a
hydration.
little.
Ooh, the hydration cocktail. There you go. You're gonna see it
I
at a
mean,
local
that's
bar near you.
I mean, it's
Coined
a
by
good idea.
well-rounded
It's
wealth.
that's definitely a good idea. That sounds intriguing to me. I'll admit.
All these health nuts. All right.
Or just-
Anyway, we were going to talk today about Jack and I have been talking about this recently. The education system. There's been a lot of I think there's been a lot of debate, and then there's also been a lot of outspoken people saying like college is BS, college isn't worth it, and
It's a scam. College is a
college is a
scam.
scam. And we were going to talk kind of through our opinions on it, as both being college people, and then kind of where we see it being beneficial, and conversely, maybe who is it for, who's it not for, and kind of hear our thoughts on it. So, what has been the most useful thing you've taken out of college? What do you think the biggest promise? What do you think the biggest thing that you were promised going into college that you would get from it, and just didn't see that benefit.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing I got out of it, I mean, it's a very personal answer and like almost in a way cheesy, but the actual experience that I had being at the college. And experience as in the clubs I participated in, the extracurriculars I did, the friends I made, the volunteer work I did, being in an a cappella group and being in the fraternity. That was the stuff I really did get out of the most, was just building a lot of connections with people and building a lot of connections with very different people. I think is definitely something that I got out of it the most. Um, for sure. It was something I couldn't have done anywhere else. And that was definitely, when I look back, I say what made it worth it for me was that I didn't just go to this school and go to class and do my homework and pass my test and then semester's over and go home. I like kind of said to myself, I want to be here. I want to do things. I want to have a college experience. I want to make memories, meaningful memories, develop meaningful relationships. And that is definitely what I got out of it the most. And if I didn't do that, I think I would have fucking hated college and I would be, preaching some of the same crap. Not crap, but like preaching some of the same stuff that a lot of people are saying about college not being worth it, college being a scam. And then to kind of jump to that side to say what was I kind of expecting to get out of college that I perhaps didn't. I would say, and it's at the end of the day, I'm going to say this, but it's my fault. I'm not blaming college. I'm blaming my own ignorance. I just didn't really understand the way things worked. So I thought I'd go to school, and if I did really well in school and earn my degree, I kind of would be able to go to the next step pretty easily. So I was getting a degree in film. I thought once I got that degree in film, it'd be pretty easy to do work in film. And as I was closing in on graduation, I was starting to realize that that was just not the case. And especially with my school's job network, the network in the entertainment industry was not super strong. Not to say that there wasn't one. And another detriment to me was that most of that network is in Los Angeles, and I didn't want to move there just yet. So I just kind of felt like, oh, okay, shit, what do I do now? I'm about to graduate, and I thought, I would, kind of have more of an insight on where to go next. Um, and yeah, that was kind of
Yeah.
like the realization I had.
I think that's a really good way to put it, like the ignorance of not knowing, because I think so many I had the same thing. It's and we grew up. Jack and I grew up in more traditional families. Like it's like you work hard, you go to school, you get good grades, you do well in school, and then you'll get a job, right?
Yeah,
Um, and
that was the
like
thought process. Go. I have a question for
yeah,
me. Not going to college was not ever an option in my head, and not because I had parents that were like, "You're going to college." Like for me in my head, I was just like, "Yeah, when I graduate high school, you go to college. That's what you do." That I was
yeah,
never thinking about not going to college.
yeah. I had the same thought too, and especially like piling on sports. For me, it was like, all right, you play in middle school, and then you play in high school, and then if you're good enough, you play in college. And like that was something I feel like I was a little bit on autopilot until honestly until COVID hit, where I'm like, oh, like I don't have to do like what everyone else tells me. I can go think consciously for myself. I'm like, if I wanted to graduate early, if I wanted to drop out, I probably could. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I can explore other facets of, or basically other frameworks and other routes that other people have taken. But it's interesting to me nowadays that one, if you just look at overall industry trends of where college is going, and the education industry is like a $1.3 trillion industry, so it's huge. Like globally,
Yeah.
it's a massive industry. The what I'll, like brick and mortar education, so like your Harvards or you go to the actual physical school into the classroom, that's been
Mm-hmm.
dropping by like 6% a year. The
Gotcha.
online education field has been growing by like 20% per year.
Oh, I'm
Granted,
sure.
right now the mix is like 90-10. So it's still 90% of people focus on the brick and mortar college education. But that swing is huge, like in terms of where the industry going, and like what value you can get out of, because the traditional college experience, especially the liberal arts school, is I go here to get a vast breadth of what is out there. You know, like you have to take your
Hmm.
arts class and your poetry class and your first year seminar or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Your lab science, your math, your history.
And that I think is, I don't want to say it's a disservice, but it's a disservice to people who know what they want to do, because like there are some classes I loved that were like outside of my major, which is finance and accounting, but I did not need to go take the history of Freudian sex, whatever my class was, or sex ed in college,
Uh-huh.
my first year seminar, reading books on like the philosophy behind sex. Like that's just not what I needed to be doing, and it was something what I wasn't interested in.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna combat that to a degree, and this is honestly a real big. This has always been, a lot of people in high school said exactly like what you're saying, like, why am I taking the English right now? Or like, so when you're learning certain things, when will this ever actually be useful in my life? I don't care. I don't need to learn about integers. I own a calculator. I just need to learn how to Excel. I don't need to understand physics equations. I don't need to understand the inner workings of our biology and chemistry unless I want to be a chemist or a biologist. I'm not going to sit here and say that that is completely inaccurate or completely untrue. However, one thing that I definitely wholeheartedly believe is that knowledge is power. And I do think that having a basis understanding of different fields in our education, in like our world, different fields of the world, I do think is very beneficial to us personally. And I think it does enrich us as individuals. Now, if we want to get to a monetary question, is it worth all the money that you're paying to be taking these classes? That's up for a different discussion.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't go as far to
we'll
say
get
that
into
it's
that.
worthless.
So that's a good point. But where is the power coming from? Is the power from knowledge coming from the basis that you have an inherent interest in what you're learning, or that you are required to memorize and regurgitate something that you are required to take?
Would Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So basically, like, knowledge is power, right? That's a very common phrase. But do you have more power from the knowledge if the knowledge that you're attaining is based on personal interest, or based on something that requires you to take it as a requirement?
I would I would say it depends on what you use that knowledge for. Because I not knowledge gives you power to do other things. I don't think knowledge in itself is power, if that makes sense. I think knowledge supplies power just as the same way as financial stability supplies happiness, contributes to it because it's just a stress it gets taken out of your everyday life, but that doesn't mean that that is the answer to happiness by any means. Same thing with knowledge, it's how you use it, but the more the more knowledge you attain, the more opportunity you have to use the knowledge that you've gained. Does that kind of make sense? So even if it's not
Yeah.
something particularly that matters in the field that you're going into, there's a lot of benefit of understanding, for example, the history of the world, and to be able to analyze things and really understand how the things around us work. Having a basis understanding of biology can definitely be helpful when you're feeling sick, to be able to somewhat not self-diagnose but have an idea of what's going on in your body, so when you go to the doctor you can have a more educated guess of what's going on, and then have the professional who studied this for years and years be able to properly diagnose you. but being able to understand things that are going on instead of just kind of guessing, I think in our everyday lives, I think is very valuable.
I agree, but I think we get more of that basis throughout like our primary education. I don't think that's something you necessarily should focus on in college. I think, in America, I mean, going to school through, I think, like high school is required, or you have to go get a GED. And I think that's where you lay the foundation of like, what's the world's history? Like, there's other cultures out there.
Hmm.
And I honestly think, I think that is good. Teaching history and teaching like how we have gotten to where we are, that's very good. But I think during those primitive years, we should focus on the frameworks that in which we approach different decision making processes in life. College, though, I think college is where you should specify if you decide to go that way, or post high school is where you should start to specify in a field,
Okay.
because going back to like the knowledge is power. It's the the application of knowledge is what gives you power,
Hmm.
right? And that
Yes.
can be either a decision or like acting on a uh, certain data you've been given, or certain something you've been told. So I think when you get to the point of college and like or post high school, being able to apply what you learn, if you start the journey during those mid teens to 20 years to mid 20 years, that is when you have the ability to learn a lot quicker than someone who's already basically filled their brain up with other stuff, you know? So, like, if I really want to focus on just acting, and that's all I want to do from 18, the day I graduate high school, to 25, right?
Okay.
You'll be so much farther ahead than someone who's like, okay, I have to go to college. I have to take several different classes that are around philosophy or science or math or whatever it is. And then once I graduate college, or once I get to be a sophomore, junior, then I can really start focusing on acting. Like the person who does it right out of the gate has a 2-year head start.
Yeah, and trust me, I have thought about that, especially as I decided that this is what I wanted to do. Yeah, I immediately started pondering that question of, did I waste 4 years of my life? Because I because I was in a bunch of classes that, well, I majored in film, which definitely contributes to that field a little bit, which was definitely huge. I minored in econ. I minored in economics. I thought that was some of the most useful knowledge I gained out of my college experience. Actually, having a basis under and a basic understanding of how the world economy actually works, how things work at a microeconomic level. I'm no expert. It was a minor, and I didn't get A pluses in all the classes, but I but
You
I got
passed.
B's or higher. um, But yeah, and
Jerome
I gained
Powell,
that.
watch
I
out.
gained some. Yeah, I did gain some skills. I gained some knowledge, and at this, and I wasn't sure that acting was what I really wanted to do at the time. So, and I also wouldn't have been ready because I mean, this we're gonna get personal rather than trying to prove a point. But I actually almost did really fully send it while I was still in high school. I did a kind of talent showcase esque thing. um, it was down in Orlando, Florida. It was a whole showcase where we trained, prepped some material, performed on stage in front of a bunch of talent agents, and then if you were good, if they liked you, then they would want to meet with you. So I did that, and I actually did really well, and had like I think 5 or 6 agents that wanted to talk to me and discuss signing me on. And obviously, I was intrigued, excited, and then about a year later, I went to Los Angeles for a week and had interviews with a few talent agencies and a manager. A manager actually did sign me, but I was not ready. I didn't know what I wanted. I still had so much growing to do. And part of me knew that when I was out there, especially in these interviews And a lot of the reports that some of the agents said were like, he's not ready. He's not ready just yet. Maybe when he's 18, um, like we could see him again, but he's not ready right now. And they were totally right. That was so fair because I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do it. And it was partly because I was just enjoying some normalcy. I was kind of enjoying high school, the friends I had in high school, and just doing that. I was like, I
Being a
kind of am
kid.
excited. I'm excited about the high school musical that we're preparing for. It's like it hadn't clicked for me yet. And I also think, say I did send it and go for it and actually like started auditioning a ton and then got an audition or got a role on a TV show or something, I wouldn't have been ready for that. I was not mature enough. I'm still kind of hoping I'm mature enough now. I don't even know if I'm still quite there yet. It would have really fucked up my perspective on things, of my worldview. It would have deleted a ton of normalcy that I would have experienced otherwise. So while I could have sent that, while I could have gone for it, could have skipped college because it's like acting, acting, acting. I should just focus on that instead and also save money from spending 4 years at college. I do think college, that experience did equip me with a better understanding of myself more than anything. And it got me to a point where by the end, I understood myself better and I understood why I really wanted to go into acting more than I ever did. And, you know, financially, if you're going to look at the numbers, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be worth it, or it wouldn't have, spending that money may not equate the outcome, or I didn't meet necessarily the right people or build the right network through that experience. But from a personal journey, I think it did put me on the right path.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think let's actually take a step back because like
Yeah,
when we're talking about education, it's you have to approach it on like where do I want to go with this in the future? Because you're making an investment in yourself in the future for the future. So it's like, all right, what type of skills do I want to attain in order to be able to provide value to someone else in the world somewhere? So whether it's acting or finance or whatever it is, that is education. Education is investing in yourself to be able to acquire skills that you can apply them in order to be useful to other people in the world. And that is how you bring value to others. So that is, I believe, is the approach that you have to look at education. Now, what form of education will give you, I think, approach it from like two ways. Is one, what is going to get you from point A to point B? So what is going to help you acquire the skill the fastest? And then what is the return on your cost for that education? Like if I'm spending 400 grand for 4 years of college, am I only going to be able to get a $40,000 job a year? Tough. Like that's a 1% return over 10 years in order to pay all that back. So that's at least the framework I want to approach that with. But then, like, to your point, what you were talking about is, and how this debate kind of started, is skill stacking versus specializing. And the route that you took was more the skill stacking, right? You said you weren't ready. So, all right, I want to go to college because I want to, or I don't want to go focus 100% on going out to LA, being a full-time actor yet, because I'm just not ready. Like, and that path works. Like, anyone can do either path. It's just what is better for you to get there. And I think a great example of that, like that I always hear, is like Steve Jobs. He was a great example of skill stacking. Like, he studied Scandinavian design and then computer programming and psychology, and he helped build the iPhone, right? Versus like a Michael Phelps, who all he did was swim, or like a Leonardo DiCaprio, like all he did was act, since he was a little kid. So yeah, that's at least the framework and the principles that I'd want to tell other people, and like even would have wished like my parents told me, is like, those are two routes that you can go. You know, it's like, you can, if you know what you want to do, like, go do that. But if you want to discover what else is out there, like, choose more the college route.
Yeah, that I completely agree with. And I didn't have that understanding at that young of an age. I really didn't. You know, all I knew was, well, I like films. I could see myself wanting to direct. I want to work with actors. I want to understand filmmaking more. And I definitely got that experience by going to the college. Is it worth how much money it was? Who's to say? But probably, maybe not.
All right.
Perhaps not. Um, However, it does still give me a bachelor's degree, and then you kind of just have to take what you got out of that transaction at face value. So I do have a bachelor's because I did this, which does open the door for opportunities that require a bachelor's degree where you can make decent money. That's honestly why I'm still like entertaining the idea of going into sales for a little bit, because that is an opportunity that college gave me, that a bachelor's degree, and most sales jobs, not all. And if you're hungry as hell and you're hammering someone down, someone might throw you a bone, give you a chance. But that definitely opens that door to me because I did get that degree.
So I want to break down two things. One, the statistic parts of like jobs, and then I'll bring it back to the door, like the opening, closing door
Gotcha.
routes. So right now, I think in the U.S., it's 50-50 on jobs that require a bachelor's degree or don't require one, right? So you see that data, and then you have to look at like, all right, of the 50% of jobs that require a bachelor's degree, one, is it something I want to do? And then two, like, is it worth me doing that? Like, do I kind of want to be I don't know, give me a job.
Um,
A marketing person, you know?
okay, if you want to work in
Do I
marketing,
want to be a marketing director? And do I love marketing, but does it pay me $50,000 a year? I don't know. Is that enough for you? Is that what you want to spend your time on? You know. Conversely, looking at the jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree, like why don't they require a bachelor's degree? What are the opportunities you can get without having a bachelor's degree? And I think we're seeing that more and more. Like, I mean, companies like Facebook and Tesla, they don't require. They're more looking at what you can do as opposed to what it says on a piece of paper.
yeah,
And I mean, I even look for that now, like with hiring people. Like, I don't. If you're someone who has a bachelor's degree and an MBA, but like you've never done what I'm trying to hire you to do, then I'd rather take the person who might be younger or might not have as much education, but has been doing it for the last 4 years, as opposed to someone who just was learning theories and not actually doing the applicable work or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, that makes sense. That's smart on your end. Not everyone necessarily behaves in that way. Might be.
Yeah.
I bet smaller businesses behave that way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, corporates kind of just like creates this chain of like, okay, I know I will get certain type of person X if they come out of certain school Y with 4 years of education, just
Yeah.
statistically. So
I think that right there, I think is where a lot of debate is going on, and like why this is kind of a hot topic. Because I think there's a lot of people that kind of went to college, but then slowly realized that they didn't want to get a job in corporate America per se. And if you don't want that, because that's one thing college has a very direct correlation with, is getting a job in the corporate side of
yeah,
America. That's probably, if you like, and if your passion is to work for a corporation or be in the corporate America system, you should absolutely go to college, and you should go to the best one you can get into, the most elite one you can get into, because that opens the door to a network of people who are higher up in corporations and have maybe higher paying jobs. And
have you ever met
that's what you should do
anyone?
if that was your goal.
Yeah, have you ever met anyone that is like, I want to go work?
No, I can't say I
Yeah. Here,
have.
this is where my problem is like, and
Yeah.
here I'll bring it back to my second point, which is like the opening and closing doors. As kids and when we're younger, like think back, even the people listening to this, what is that dream that you had, like when you were like maybe young teens or even like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old? It's like, all right, I want to be I see myself on a rocket ship or like whatever it is. Like I was like, I want to be Iron Man or it's like, something crazy or have my own
Yeah.
jet or something like that. Going to a 4-year college, going into the corporate world, that I think opens too many doors. And I'll explain it with this analogy. There was a study that they did where they it was a selection bias study. So they had these people at a farmer's market, and they had to choose different types of jellies they wanted.
Okay.
One study they had like 25 different jellies, and the people just couldn't decide. There was too many options. So they would pick one and be like, I don't know, like, but this one's also looks good. The second test group, there was only 6 types of jellies they could choose. That store had more sales, and like people were able to choose what type of jelly they wanted more succinctly and more frequently than someone who had too many options. And how this applies to the opening door and closing doors thing is like, I think when you have too many options, it detracts from your ability to focus on one option and just go all in on it. So if you're like walking down a corridor and there's only one door open and there's only one door, like guess what? You have to go through that door. And that's where I think if you know exactly what you want to do or you know something that interests you, it's like open that door and keep going with that door or keep going down that path. You can slowly start finding more doors, which are like finding different fields of education. But I think know in the back of your head that the more that your brain starts picking up on different options, the harder it is to focus on one thing.
That's very true.
That's my opinion of that. And like, I think a lot of people could live the lot. In my opinion, I think a lot of people could live and pursue more of the dream lives they wanted. That fairy tale, like where I saw myself as a kid, the childhood fantasy life.
Mm-hmm.
If they were able to succinctly focus on the one thing that inspired them the most or gave them the most passion without having too many options and too many doors open.
Yeah, and that's not ever. That's hard for people to be able to identify sometimes. Like that's a whole nother issue. A lot of people just might not know what that one thing is. A lot of people might not even know what they want, just kind of rolling with the punches, trying to figure it out. I mean, that's been me for the longest time. And like to come to that realization that acting was what I wanted to do, that actually took a lot of soul searching. It took me a lot of reflection. I didn't even want to admit it because it was almost like a inner battle with myself. I didn't want to admit that that was what I wanted to do because I knew what that meant in the back of my head of what path I would be on. It would not be safe. It would not be normal. It would add a lot more stress to my life. And so, I mean, if I had that struggle, I can imagine a lot of other people have had that struggle too of just not knowing or not maybe even wanting to acknowledge that they have that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as humans, it comes down, that kind of decision boils down to your kind of Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs. Like if you're less risk averse and you value safety and security more than maybe the prospect of having that kind of childhood fantasy life, then guess what? The corporate job, that provides you that like 100%. Like people have done it time and time again, and those businesses are going to pay you. They're going to give you 401k, and you're going to be able to live a very stable life. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we're not like Jack and I are, especially me. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just I wish I specifically was presented with those different frameworks when I was a kid. Like, hey, you can choose either path, or here are the different paths. Which one do you gravitate towards more, or like start thinking about that as you're going through this education process, like middle school, high school?
Yeah. And I wish I kind of had more of an understanding of kind of what the hierarchy of the education system implies. Let me give you an example. I hear names like Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford. I know that those are back then. It's like those are really hard schools to get into, and you're really smart if you go there. That's a smart people's school. It's really hard to get into. If you can get into it, great, awesome, that's cool, and that person's probably going to do a bunch of smart people crap. That's all. I didn't understand what that actually meant. I didn't understand the value of how hard it is to get into a school, how exclusive a school is, raises the value of having that name attached to you for the university that you attended, because
Yeah.
that increases the value of what the school means. I went to Elon. Harvard means a lot more, is a lot more impressive than Elon objectively, just because Harvard is very exclusive, very hard to get into, and has a fantastic reputation. That didn't really click with me entirely, that was a part of a decision. My decision on Elon was vibe. I just liked it better. That's why I chose it. And also something just felt right about, I did like the program a lot. I liked that it was still in North Carolina, close to home. It was cheaper than USC, which was the other one I was seriously considering. It would have been long run. It was 20,000 more tuition for USC, so that would have been 80,000 extra dollars
In the long term.
in the long
Dude,
term.
I love about that, you man. Like that your decision was based on the vibe.
It was
Which
fully based on the vibe. I was
I
not
think
feeling the USC vibe, even though
I
on paper it would have been so, like, if you're looking at it from a statistical point, you'd be like, yeah, go to USC, dumbass. It's much more exclusive. Like, it's hard to get into. It's got a great reputable name. Also, you're into film and movies and acting. This is the school in Los Angeles. They have the best program ever. If I went there, I'm automatically in the same alma mater as George Lucas
yeah,
and
that's fair.
Kevin Feige, who's running like so many top dogs in there. So like on paper, I should have gone there. You know what I'm saying?
And I
On
think that
paper.
yeah, you're very good at being able to live in the moment. Like know like what feels right. And I don't know if that's a certain type, but like I feel like I'm the opposite of that, and why it's great talking about this stuff with you and like having people listen to this stuff, because 100% I'm the type of person that's like, oh yep, look at this in 5 years, USC gets me this, that's why I'm choosing that, like even if the vibe is off, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, and yeah, I mean that is the exact thing that happened with like my college career and like lacrosse career too. It's like
Yeah.
you choose the better school for the future kind of thing, as opposed to the vibe.
So funny. And also, I made like pros and con lists of both schools, did some compare and contrast. Um, and I remember,
Technical analysis.
yeah, I was actually like very technical about it. But I do remember like seeing that list. I remember I wanted to go to the accepted students weekend. And I remember my dad was like, "Do you really need to go to that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really want to go, because right now I'm looking at this pro and con list. If I can't go and I just have to make this decision, I'm picking USC."
Oh wow.
I remember saying that. So then he said, "Yeah, then you can go." I said, "Sure."
Yeah, spend a
Yeah,
few
you know what?
$100 to save
Yeah.
me 80.
He said, "Then totally." I mean, now obviously, I mean, if he said, I would have taken my parents' advice heavily into consideration too. If
Yeah.
he said it's not a good idea, or if it's too expensive, even with loans and stuff, then I would have listened. But I went to the accepted students weekend and I didn't like it. I didn't hate it, but nothing that day felt right at all. It was just one of those things. It was just weird. I was not feeling the vibe. there was a bit of an elitist attitude. I'm sure every reputable school has that. They were kind of hyping us up, like this school's so hard to get into, and you're in, you're here, like kind of that
Yeah,
vibe, you
acceptance
know?
rate kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and then also like I remember they were giving some statistics, which was like they're like 89% of accepted students have like perfect GPAs, and I was like, I'm in the 11%, baby. So it was just stuff like that. So it was just kind of interesting. Like there was just a lot of name dropping going on, and I get it. Like looking back too, like I get why they do it. That totally attracts so many people, and it really on paper should have attracted me. But I just also, yeah, the guy that was like team leader, I thought he was kind of an asshole. So it was just none of it was working. And yeah, I was like, yeah, you know what? I want to do Elon because I think their program's really cool. I'll still get to be in LA for a bit. I'll still get to be close to home and close to my family and friends. And that was why I chose it. I kind of just discarded the fact that like it's the more reputable school with the better network. And sometimes I look back and I've like, well, maybe I should have done that because on paper I absolutely should have. If the idea is just having success in a career, hands
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. I do want to get into that. So let's switch to more like the monetary side, like cost versus
Yeah,
return on
sounds
cost for
good.
education. In America specifically, we are 100% like education, I think, is or higher education, college is 100% more for the what you can get on the back end in terms of a job, which correlates and relates to a salary or like what you can earn. Other places around the world, like you look at Europe, college is so much less expensive, and I think it's more based on the desire to educate people for the sake of learning. And that is what I think online education presents nowadays is like you you can go out there and learn anything nowadays just for the sake of interest and wanting to learn it. Like for example, like I wanted to learn how to be a little bit better public speaker. So I found this guy online, I found him through YouTube, signed up for his course, and like it's been helping. I love that stuff. Like you pick up little psychological tips and like that kind of stuff. And that is what I think education should be, in my opinion. I think education should be a transfer of the wealth of knowledge that is in someone's head that they have learned through trial and experience and want to pass on to someone else. Not specifically just for the case of like, you must learn this because this equates to $100,000. Like, and I think that is a much more freeing way of going about improving your skills because that would allow people to focus on really what they want to know. Like what do they gravitate towards, you know?
Yeah. You know, I think partly why it's not like that because I mean, you know what colleges? Yeah, just this idea just popped in my head. You know what colleges are in a way? They're corporate training facilities.
Oh, 100%.
That's
Yeah.
what they are, and that's exactly what the conglomerations want them to be.
Yep. Yep.
So I
100%. I
think
mean like
that's partly what's going on.
yeah. Like I mean you always hear this the phrase or you hear it pretty often. It's like you're going to learn most of the stuff on the job.
Yeah,
Yes, that is true. Like you will learn a significant amount of stuff on the job, but for corporate jobs, a ton of what you learn in college in preparation for those more corporate jobs, like especially finance, accounting, marketing world, like it's heavily influenced by those corporations. Like you look at school donors to some of these bigger colleges, like guess who's donating to them? Owners and people who have interest in these massive corporations. Like they know that investing in these schools like gives them a consistent stream of labor capital
yeah,
throughout the next decades.
yeah. It's smart on their part. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I get why they're doing it completely.
yeah. But I don't know. At the end of the day, if I had it, what would you do if you had to do it again? You think you'd go back to college? Say you're a sophomore in high school or
Okay.
junior in high school. are you're starting to think about this decision? Are you going back to, based on where you are now, are you going back to college?
I would have gone to a public university where tuition is cheaper. Probably. I probably would have gone to a public university. I would still like for them to have had like a film program ish. However, I would not major in it. I would major in business. And then I would continue acting as an extracurricular throughout college. I would continue to maybe go to class, improve on my craft, and do that during that. And the reason I say that, one, that still gives me the opportunity to have a fun college experience where I would still have like been able to meet new people, have, do the fraternity thing, maybe do the acapella thing, still have those opportunities there. However, I will also be getting my money's worth because at the end of the day, what college is offering you is a college degree. That's what you're getting out of this transaction that says I did college and I'm smart enough to have gone through college, bachelor degree. And I would do it in the business or a business related field because um, that way, if I ever like where I'm at now, if I need to do a job that pays a little more but would require a bachelor's degree, I could do that for a little bit while still being on that grind towards acting. And then if they had any film stuff, I would minor in film, so I could still try to gain a solid knowledge on that. So that would be my plan. So I would go out of college. Um, it would be much more affordable. My degree would actually be business centered. However, I would still want to engulf myself into the world of film and filmmaking, actually learn about that stuff, but also be still acting, whether it's taking classes, whether it's doing any plays in the area, any little thing like that, or maybe the improv team at the college, any of that stuff. I would make sure to keep up, and then I would get ready to rock and roll. That's exactly what I would have done. That's what I would have done in retrospect.
Interesting.
Benefit of hindsight.
Okay. And would that get you to where you want to be in the next 10 years? Or do you think that puts you on a better path of where you want to be in the next 10 years?
I don't know. I really don't. It would give me a little bit more stability and I think a little more freedom to really go for things right now. However, maybe I would have been in a similar place. You don't know. So I don't, even though like that was a very analytical response to that question. Um, Also, like I would have wanted the school to have a good reputation on top of just being a public university. Forgot
Yeah.
to say that. It needs to be. I would want it to have been kind of challenging to get into, just for also that network opportunity. It's just how it goes.
Yep.
But yeah, it would have maybe given me a little more freedom to kind of go for things a little more, maybe have a little more financial stability. But you end up where you end up, and I don't regret the last 4 years of my life because I had a fucking great time. I had so much fun. I had
That
a
is one thing
blast,
about
man.
college. Yeah.
Oh my god,
gives
it
you the
was
experience.
so fun. It was so cool. I had a great, great, great freaking time, and we're here now, where we are now, and I got a long journey ahead of me, but it would have been hard no matter what. And at least I know what I want to do. So at least Elon gave me that, even if
Yeah.
it was unintentional.
And that's all you can ask for. Is like knowing
Yeah.
yourself and knowing what you want to do. That's crucial.
Yeah. What about you?
I would have done one of two things. One, I would have not gone, and
Okay.
I would have maybe traveled for a year, but within a year, I would have just started my own business or started basically being an apprentice for someone in a business field that I wanted to do. Probably would have been in the real estate space or just something of the kind of blue collar service. Or I would have public university. I would have only gone for a year with the intent. In hindsight, I would have made the intention of only going for a year with an emphasis on experience and seeing what opportunities I can draw out from the network at the school as opposed to the education. because
Gotcha.
of, so like I probably would have skipped every class. I mean, not every class, but like, I'm not going there to go to class.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like I would have probably gone to USC. And the reason I would skip class and just focus on like what opportunities I can make out of it is because like what we were talking about, those type of classes train you for the corporate world, at least in the field I'm interested in, business and
Hmm.
entrepreneurship and finance and accounting.
Which can still
And
be useful, and I'm sure you agree with this. Just because
yeah,
if you want to be a business owner, and you'll have to manage to a degree, and it's good to understand what those jobs imply and what they mean.
oh yeah, 100%. I have a very, so from the business standpoint, I have a very different perspective as opposed to someone who started a business when they were young and grew it, and then like sold it. Is kind of like my approach to looking at when you build a business. Like you always want to have the sale in mind. So like I get business more from the standpoint now of it's an asset. So like I see different businesses as the entity of like what you can buy and sell, as opposed to like I'm selling widgets or whatever that is. So I guess you can call that more higher level investing kind of mindset, but
Hmm.
I love both of them. So,
Yeah,
but I definitely would have. I think it's important for people to leverage the online education system now, and
yeah,
not from accredited universities. And the reason I say that is because those universities, one, they're not taught by people that were actually in the industry doing it. Like, do you have
hmm
a do you have an acting professor who was like on the same level as an A-list actor? Probably not.
no,
But if an actor, an A-list actor, dropped a course and was like, "Hey, this is what I do," like if Chris Hemsworth was like, "Take my acting course," you're probably going to take that acting course. Like he's a pretty good actor.
yeah. Or at least he's got this. He's got success, right?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you want to learn from someone who's done it, who's made the millions? Yeah, that's why there's that
exactly.
masterclass business. They take all like the celebrities or the top fields, and they do their video series.
Yeah, I think it's genius. Like, because if you can learn from people who are where you want to be, then follow that person. It's Alex Ramosi has that great like clip. He's like, you can have a finance professor or a wealth manager person giving you all the same investment advice as Warren Buffett does, but guess what? They didn't build Berkshire Hathaway, which is $100 billion company. So
Yeah,
there's a big caveat there. So like I'm a firm
it's very
believer in
true.
leveraging that side of the online education system and like pick up on and learn from people who have done what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are some of the best mentors. That's what I do. I do a lot. Blah, 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 blah. I go online a lot, and I love watching like 1 hour interviews with like A-list actors doing like career breakdowns. Leonardo DiCaprio has multiple. He literally you get to hear him talk for an hour and a half about where he started, the path of his career, what he's learned along the way, advice he's gotten, and I gained that's shit I gained so much out of, in my opinion. Matthew McConaughey, he's got a
Oh
fantastic
yeah.
book. Definitely more personal. Like I think he just handled fame really well, better than most. So it's kind of interesting for him to kind of open up to you of open up his process and how he did process that shift in his life. I thought that was really cool. Not necessarily like career success, but just really interesting introspective book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's the stuff I love. Um, that's like, and that's where I really feel like I'm learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say you
100%
don't need
agree.
college to be successful. I think that's definitely, um, I think some people kind of believe that that's to be the case. It's definitely not true. Um, but it's just, if you know what you want to do, it's definitely a lot easier to make that decision, understand what college actually means, Because, like, if you want to be a doctor, then of course you're going to go to college and you're going to go to med school. There's no other way to do it. If you really want to be a lawyer, you're going to go to 4 years of college and get your bachelor's and then try to get into the best law school you can. If you want to be the best lawyer you can be, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But if you don't really know what you want to do, or you kind of, don't know if you want to go into the corporate world, but you kind of want to go into business, you can learn a lot and you can make really good connections. Especially if you play that game, you try to get into the best reputable school, hardest to get into school you can. I mean, yeah, that gets into the elitist shit, but you're gonna make some really good connections that'll definitely set you up for success. I think that's definitely another great thing that college offers is networking opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. So wrapping this up, I think we both agree on like it's very situational whether college is
definitely
more beneficial. But I think we do a disservice to a younger generation, and like what I wish I knew is play out the different the frameworks and principles that college versus non-college can provide. What are you paying for college versus what are you going to get in return for it? And I think that is the most valuable lesson we can learn from someone, or we can just learn as people at a young age, is open people up to different frameworks in different paths of how they can live life, and see what they naturally gravitate towards more, because I think that will allow more people to pursue what they truly want to do, as opposed to getting stuck as a cog in the wheel.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then there's also that issue. So like, one, it's know what you want to do, but when you're 17, 18 years old and you're making this decision, you might have no idea what the hell you want to do. I didn't even know what I wanted to do, even though I wanted to study film. I didn't fully have it. I couldn't fully grasp the concepts. So no one truly knows. You just don't, because you're so busy worrying about like prom coming up and like the after party of the dance and how that's going to be. That's the stuff you cared about back then. We all remember that. So like it's hard. And if you don't know what you want to do, I actually think going to a public university, so like still go to college but cheap, but still get exposure to as many different things as you can. If you really don't know and you want to explore and you want to open your horizons, to me that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
If you really don't know what you want to do, but you want to, if you want to go to college, there's also some people just might just be like, I want to have that college experience. I want to live in a dorm. I want to go to college parties. I want to make new friends. I want to have fun. I want to do the college thing. It's very fair to want to do the college thing. I loved doing the college thing. So yeah, it's a lot of it's also just what you want, but also hopefully being able to get the guidance. Because, I thought I was a pretty smart kid when I was young, and I definitely still had a lot of ignorance on how the world worked and stuff. So maybe just have the proper, if you can find a way to either just be really insightful or have a really awesome mentor or guide that explains to you like how this really works, what the actual financial consequences are, so you can actually go in and really understand the decisions that you're making. Then yeah, it probably won't feel like as much of a scam, and you'll probably understand what a bachelor's degree really means in this world.
Yeah. Well, good luck to everyone who is still in that decision-making process of whether to go to college. And
if anyone that young is listening, there is a high schooler that listens to us, so I'm actually very curious to hear if there's any opinions on this episode, because that'd be really cool to actually like hear from people that are legitimately making this decision and don't, I mean, they're going to be thinking the same thing that I had, that I was thinking, like, oh, this one's really nice. This one's got cool dining halls. This one's got nice dorms. Yeah. That's awesome. And it's a solid program. Cool. And that's totally understandable. That's why colleges have that stuff, to look sexy. They're selling you the school. They want your money. Makes sense. Yeah, and it is attractive.
Yeah. I mean, college is a business for sure. That's why I think, honestly, try and find
a college tour is a 2-hour sales meeting.
There you go. Salesman
It
Jake.
is. It is. It, like actually, that
Yeah.
would be really interesting. That would be a great thing. I think to know, to be told like, hey, we're gonna go tour all these colleges. Um, it, we want you to love some of them, but just remember it's a sales pitch. You're being sold to. They want you to apply here, but because of my perspective of like college and like can you get in, for me it was almost like, oh my god, like no, they don't want me to come here. I'd be lucky if I could even get in here. No, like definitely get that shit out of your head.
Yeah.
Like
And then they're like,
yeah, and
"Oh,
that
you
I
got
had
in?"
that problem too. Like I didn't even care. Like I couldn't understand that they were selling something to me because I just the idea of being able to get in or like that I wasn't even worthy to go to the school. That definitely played a factor, and I don't think it should. You should just work as hard as you can and try to get as good of grade as you can, get as good test scores as you can, and then whatever happens, happens. Yeah.
That is such a I didn't even really have this idea or kind of recognize this beforehand, but I mean, think about the college sales process. They're like, "Oh, you have to be a certain level to get into this college, and then if you get in, you also have to pay us."
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like it's like getting access granted to someone. Like usually, if you pay something, like if you pay for a party, you'll get in. It's not like I have to apply for this party and then pay to get in. You know, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
So
No, it really, that's so true. It's like,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, but honestly, that's true. I was just thinking about this, like, and I never looked at my fraternity as like this, as like I never felt like I was applying to join a fraternity, but like you know, you have to get a bid from the people that are in it, and then you have to pay dues.
dude.
It's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, that actually makes me think a lot. Like on the business side too. Like what other business models are out there where it's like, oh, you have to be in elite status. Oh, it's like
Yeah, it's
I
status.
mean, it's
Yeah,
like Ferrari. Like you have to Ferrari in order to buy like other models of like nicer Ferraris, you have to own three, or I think it's like three base models beforehand before you can even buy like the more expensive one. So it's
yeah,
like you have to pay it. Not only do you have to like own more, like that's the status game you have to play. But then once you go through the approval process to let us you to allow you to buy a more expensive one, then you have to drop $500,000.
okay. So this is, dude, we're like kind of cracking the college business model a little bit. I feel like, and it's a luxury good. College is a luxury good.
For yeah, yeah, private universities. Yeah,
Definitely private universities, but even public, like to a degree, like Chapel Hill. We're from North Carolina. That's a public university, but it's still the same thing. It's like you you'll be lucky if you can even get in here, and then you do, and they're like, all right, now pay us. This is still like, and
yeah,
that's and it's because like you want to, you know, we as humans do care about status, and I've definitely done a lot of work on myself to not care about that because it is so superficial, but it's still there. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, and it's the same thing with like a Rolex watch, right?
yeah,
Why would you buy a, so what the device does is tell you the time. Why would you want to buy a watch when you see clocks around all day? You have a clock on your phone, you have a clock on your computer. What does a Rolex give you in you daily utility that you don't already have? The answer is technically nothing, but what it does give you is status.
mhm,
And
yep,
then they could jack up the price because of that. Because then you walk into somewhere with a Rolex and you want other people to be like, that guy has a really nice Rolex. Therefore, he can afford that Rolex. Therefore, he must be successful. Oh, this guy has a Ferrari. That means he can afford that Ferrari. Not always true with leasing, but
fake it till you make
that
it.
mean, and if he has a Ferrari, that must mean he's super successful. So therefore, you're spending way more money on these goods, even though there are the car takes you places. The watch tells the time. Very cheap cars do the same thing a Ferrari can do. Yeah, yes, it's much nicer, and Andrew Reamer would roast me alive about that, of course. But
I like my Honda Civic.
but yeah, and you can buy a $2 Hello Kitty watch at Target. So like so like that's what it is. Like that's how a good gets its value, especially a luxury good where it's not just strictly utility. Sorry, I'm just like I'm kind of having this realization myself. That's why I'm talking like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess college is somewhat the same way. The more exclusive it is, the more it represents status. That increases the valuation of that university. If you can
it's of the piece of paper that you take away from the university.
Yes.
If I have a diploma from Harvard,
it is more valuable than a diploma from Elon, objectively. that doesn't upset me in the slightest. That it should be.
Yeah.
It's Harvard. Their acceptance rate is one of the lowest ever. It's up there for the hardest school to get into. Elon's not crazy hard to get into. So it makes sense that the name Harvard would have more value.
Yeah. What can we create that has more value? You know what?
Let's start our own college.
Yeah, you can buy colleges nowadays. Like there's because of this whole shift in the education environment. Like some colleges are going out of business.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I've looked at that on the real estate side a little bit. See, like what could you turn a college into? You
know what? I'm honestly surprised that like a bunch of really powerful people aren't like, hey, let's start our own university. Because if you're, I mean, I'm trying to. Elon Musk could do it. Although there's already a school called Elon, but that has nothing to do with Elon Musk. I'll use a different example. Freaking Mark Zuckerberg. He could start his own university if he wanted. He just doesn't want to, probably, and he's perhaps busy. But someone of that high status and that much success, if he started a school, it's like Mark Zuckerberg's university. Boom, that attracts people. And it would take years and years to like get it up to the status. Those things just take time. It would eventually need to become more and more exclusive to get into, and then those people that went there need to find success. But yeah, if you're a very powerful person and a very publicly successful person, if you were to start something like a university, I think you'd end up making a shit ton of money from starting that university.
Yeah, and actually, Steven Schwarzman. He is the founder of Blackstone.
Okay.
He has done this. But at that point, they're not looking at that from the business standpoint. I think they're more looking at it as the future generations of passing on education. So like he made his university he's got this thing called the Schwarzman Scholar. He has built and partnered with China, a university in Beijing, Tsinghua. I'm definitely not saying that right. University in Beijing. Basically helps try to like form more global leaders. So it's interesting what he's done there. But at that point, these guys are all so successful. Like they're not gonna, like, to them, half a $500 million university is a drop in a bucket to them. But yeah, always interesting how everything comes back to money and a business. It didn't just get there by itself.
Yeah, seriously. That's so interesting. All right, well, this might be a good place to wrap it because I got to get rolling. But this was a fun one. I liked this.
Yeah. Who knows? What's the next step for education?
I do not know. But yeah, I would honestly I think it'd be cool if this became a more open conversation on what a lot of people our age who have recently gotten out of college think about college as a whole. I think everyone who's in the corporate world right now or use that to go to law school or med school probably have, they're like, yeah, it gave me that opportunity to get a good job or, put me in a good place to get to my graduate school. And I'm, that's great for those professions, hands down. I would be very curious to hear people that wanted to take a different path after leaving college and see where they stand with it, how they feel, if they feel lost, and so on. Because I definitely did it first. And it'd be cool to hear about people applying to colleges who are making this decision and all of that, and just remembering how much power that they have Especially looking back, colleges were everything for me back then. You know, if I could get into a school, that'd be like, oh my god, that's everything. Like looking back, it's a school. It's a fucking
Yeah.
school. You
Yeah.
get in, great. You don't. Okay, but as long as you worked really hard, don't sweat it. It's all good. You're gonna be just fine. Does not. Yes, elite universities give you better networking opportunities, but college is college. You'll meet people. It's all good.
Yep. Alrighty, cool. Well, that's the pod. Thank you guys for listening. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and anywhere else you listen. And if you want to leave any likes or comments on our Instagram or any of these episodes with any ideas or future suggestions on what we can talk about, what we can improve, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Hell yeah. Much love to y'all, and thank you for listening as always.
Deuces.